This is one of the ways the Nitha began. A boy trying to avoid a lashing. A man protesting at the challenge of a new generation. An old man handing on tradition. It looks like a small incident, but it's the beginning of the most significant 2 days the Mursi people have known in 30 years. The creation of an entire new generation of adults will begin here, in a ceremony the Mursi call Nitha. At the center of the Nitha ceremony is Garana. Garana is the only man who can make the ceremony happen. He's nearly 80 now, but these will be the most important days of his life. We had come to southern Ethiopia at Garana's invitation, hoping to record an event which would be the climax of our 17 years filming with the Mursi. Garana offered to be our guide through every stage of the Nitha. Garana had told us 6 months earlier that the Nitha ceremony would happen now. But we found that he'd set the ceremony at a time of deep and unprecedented crisis for the Mursi. Since 1974, we've filmed 3 times in Mursi country. The 5,000 Mursi live here on the edge of Ethiopia, hemmed in between mountains and one of Africa's great rivers, the Omo. Over the years, we've seen how the Mursi have fought to preserve their way of life in the face of drought and hunger and war. In the 1980s, we've seen how they've tried to come to terms with their increasing contact with modern Ethiopia. Now we'd return to witness the most crucial event in Mursi life, at a moment when their very survival was under threat.
Bagerti orninge ana bara arunga ora na nanga ana bara arunga charung ma khulu la kan tu huna ma ro kizi wona kenya ke hawba madoga huli malota konti bimona duci de nga kagara ama be porni keni bimeku ana ma or tahurunga no kede buyan ta bay gara kubuteo nga kodo oktoehu amanga.
Garana has lived here in the far south of Mursi country alongside the river Omo all his life. This is the Mursi's ancestral heartland. But in 1987, Garana and his people were forced to flee from a devastating attack by the Bume who live on the other side of the Omo. Armed with Kalashnikov automatic rifles, the Bume massacred a tenth of the entire Mursi population in a single day. Many of Garana's relatives were killed, and he lost an eye. Now the Mursi have risked returning here for the Nitha ceremony.
Ini hiring anio.
Kan hiri.
Ani huli ini lomi loanga lo kunuri. Isini ke lo kolomi anio.
Huli kesini nga. Lo ko yugon anyo ido sigia. Yugo sigia. Kini ngamma kesini ke lo sane sini ya. Ko yugon ngan. Nga kumuru seke. Walyoku. Ya kete ngan ya kinne. Lo sa kinne hula sio ngai.
Anthropologist David Turton has worked with the Mursi since 1968, but this film brings him into unfamiliar territory here in the south. It also coincides with an event he's been waiting to witness for over 20 years.
All that I know about the age-set ceremony comes from what people told me about the last one. I'm to some extent in the dark about how it is going to turn out, what it's going to be like. This is an event, anyway, which many Mursi will only see once, if at all, because of the period of time between ceremonies. It's 30 years since the last ceremony was held. So there are obviously a lot of younger Mursi who've never seen it before, and certainly it's going to be new for me.
Work begins on the ritual compound for the Nitha. Through the ceremony, these boys will become members of a new set of adult men. The name of the new set will be revealed by Garana during the ceremony. When it's over, every Mursi man will have moved up an age grade. The Teru, considered boys up to now, will be Rora, or adults. The present Rora will be Bara, or elders. And the men who are now Bara will retire from public life altogether. Garana talks to a group of Teru about the Nitha. For them, above all, the ceremony will bring a vital change of status from boys to adults.
What amounts to a whole generation almost of men between the ages of about 15 and 45 are going to be literally given adulthood. It's not until they've become legally adults that they can really come into their own in public life. That age range is simply a consequence of the fact that the last ritual giving of adulthood took place in 1961.
Uligadangi is a leading Teru. For him and his age mates, the advance to the adult Rora grade will bring new rights and privileges. Most valued of all will be the right to speak with adult authority in full-scale debates when important issues are being decided.
Kagamne so yo gamne ho abela kirito ya na huli rono ni sin dos nga yo ya ge elbay ni yo a bobun hol nga te bedenya te du hang matolo mo ungunga bush kinabuini adi amara anyagien anya kaninga anganga tezun talibai ahuli logo hoini nakamar kunni rura talito tebbe aha tebbe wa ton mirugyo ton siyo aywe da kubara aluriyo yo gyab kururunga jemesa bosa atoro kaman anganga.
In the late afternoon, boys begin to build the Nitha compound. Garana and the senior men of the Bara and Rora age grades will sleep here tonight before the dawn naming of the new age set. Amongst the elders, Garana's unique qualifications for his central role in authorizing and supervising the Nitha are unchallenged. Most fundamental of all is that he's an elder of this southern part of Mursi country known as Areholi. Only when Garana has performed the Nitha in this ancestral heartland can the ceremony be carried out in the rest of Mursi country.
Garana is the only active member of the Bara grade in the Areholi section, the grade whose role it is to hand on adulthood to the younger men. But the fact that he is also an influential figure clearly makes him the obvious choice. Indeed, he's the only one, because so many of his age mates have died.
Garana is the focus of pressures that have been building up as the older Teru have become increasingly impatient to change their official status from boys to adults.
Obviously, these 45-year-old men who've got wives and children, indeed some of them have got married daughters, in fact, they're having to play a full part as adults. And the restrictions upon them tend to be rather symbolic and rather petty restrictions, which become increasingly irritating, as it were. One of the factors propelling the system, which causes the ceremony to be held eventually, is this growing contradiction and frustration that these men experience. Once the elders have handed on adulthood to a new group of men and created thereby a new age set, those elders will no longer have any significant part to play in public life. One could say that they want to, as it were, delay it as long as possible, because by delaying it, they emphasize the dependence of these younger men on them, because if they don't actually give them adulthood, they'll die as boys, as they put it. And on the other hand, by delaying it, those elders prolong their own public significance somewhat.
Garana explained how the disciplines of the age system work.
Uli tarodana loe barasinake so uli talituno taro inyananyo na jartanyo taro holiso arora rura talituno bana arora ige banu goranga a holiso kibana ke holiso ni wenga na hena malu uli awda teluti dole mage hona ngadage hunye na jene bara kuyani karangane ane pada kusacir pada ko coka dole cir coki kyo biuto ninge karangane iwahi kuna ane bara tela baine anga
We wanted to find out what the Nitha ceremony meant for Mursi women. It was apparent